Hi, Professor Dyer here, talking about research in human development and family science. So, science works great, has brought a lot of improvement to the life of children and families. Are there any fakers in HDFS? Folks who are pretending to be science, but they aren't? Unfortunately, yeah, we have our share. Pseudoscience is false or pretend science. As the National Science Foundation says, it is when a claim is presented intentionally, falsely, so that it appears to be scientific, but it is not. How would someone do this? Well, we have to go back to the defining characteristics of science. Let's go through them one at a time and talk about how they are faked. Systematic empiricism. Essentially, pseudoscience mimics systematic empiricism through words. They use scientific words, but they use them incorrectly, or they use words that appear to perhaps be scientific, but they just don't ever really define the words. What happens when you don't define a word is that you can't measure it, so it can never be subjected to systematic empiricism. A nice example of this is learning styles. The concept of a learning style has never been more than just conceptually described. This is really evident when you look at different learning styles systems. The VARC system, which is probably the most prominent, says that there are 4 learning styles, but there's another system that says there's 8, another system that says there's 3, another system I've pictured here says there are really 3 learning styles, but they overlap in 4 different ways. Why can't they all agree on how many learning styles there are? Because none of these terms have been defined. Since they have not been defined, they cannot reliably be measured, which is the essence of systematic empiricism. Therefore, we can't really know much about them because they can't be measured reliably. Secondly, pseudoscience works real hard to avoid falsifiability. They never want to approach a project with the thought of maybe demonstrating that what they're selling doesn't work. They're not going to do that. But they have to distract us from that somehow. And here they use a very heavy reliance on anecdotes and testimonials. Those anecdotes are typically very emotionally compelling. So they use the vividness effect to essentially distract us, and we forget the fact they haven't actually done science yet. Some examples are Brain Balance, a company that sells a treatment for children who, well, they never really tell you. This is part of not defining their terms very well. Their descriptions sound maybe like it's for kids with ADHD, maybe it's for kids with autism. They never really say, but their website is full of success stories that are professionally produced. They're really glitzy, and they're very emotionally compelling stories of parents who have used this service for their child. The Evergreen Center in Colorado, this is the one that provides so-called attachment therapy. Notice again, they're using terminology incorrectly in order to give you the wrong impression. They want you to think that their attachment therapy is related to attachment theory, which is a scientific theory and has lots of support. Their attachment therapy is not. So they use the scientific term, but they use it differently from the way science uses it. But their website also is full of what they call client perspectives, emotionally compelling testimonials, distracting from the fact that they haven't done science. Finally, Stan Brzezinski's website does the same thing. He's in Texas, supposedly treating children with a very pernicious form of pediatric brain cancer. His treatment is ineffective, but he distracts you from that with patient stories. So this is a really widely used technique to engage our emotions and distract us from the fact that they haven't actually done science. But what the pseudoscientists really excel at is mimicking public verifiability. They want us to think that they have been trained. They want us to think that they have been vetted in some way by the scientific community and been approved by the scientific community, that they have scientific consensus that what they're doing is right and it works. They really want to give us that impression. So they do things like they claim that they have it. They just say they have it when they don't. They use fake credentials. They hold events on college campuses, and very rarely, but with tragic consequences when they do, they publish in scientific journals. They can only do that by lying, by using falsified data, but it happens occasionally. Some examples. This is the Evergreen Clinic, again, providing attachment therapy, and they say, we offer evidence-based therapy. Easy to say, but not true. This is Brain Balance's website, backed by research, it says. No, it's not. Fake credentials, what do I mean by that? Well, take a look at John Gray's book. He's the one who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and he's written several books since then. This franchise has made him a lot of money. He says at the top of his book, it says John Gray, PhD. He is giving us the impression that he has been academically trained and has earned academic credentials. Has he really? Not at all. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree in what is essentially transcendental meditation. Does he have a PhD though? No, he bought one from a diploma mill. According to Wikipedia here, it says he got it for completing a correspondence course. As someone who has a PhD, I can assure you cannot get a PhD from completing a correspondence course. He just purchased this, just so he could put it on the front of his books and make it look like he has an academic credential that he doesn't have. Facilitated communication is the pseudoscience that really likes to provide trainings on a college campus. They do all their trainings at Syracuse University. They get all the clout of being on a college campus because people assume that means that you are in fact endorsed by the scientific community. Facilitated communication is not at all endorsed by the scientific community. It's been flatly exposed as a pseudoscience and rejected, but they get a lot of traction from providing trainings on a college campus. Finally, the example of publication for a pseudoscientist. This is Andrew Wakefield. He submitted this paper, had it published in Lancet. Later, Lancet retracted the publication. But this study, which incidentally you cannot tell from the title, is a paper about how the MMR vaccine causes autism. And that title is a nice example of using scientific terminology in a way that is fundamentally misleading rather than helpful, to make it look like there's science involved, but there's not. Papers get retracted not because the scientific community eventually has decided that might not have been the right answer. No, they get retracted when they are fraudulent. This paper is a nice example of fraud in academic publishing. Virtually all of the data was incorrect and made up. The sample is not at all what it claims to be. The methods are not at all what they claim to be. This paper was determined to be a fraud and was retracted by the journal. However, anti-vaccination activists still get a lot of traction out of the fact that it was published in the first place. And that was essentially an attempt to make the anti-vaccination movement look legitimate when it is not.